Getting a business off the ground requires data-driven strategy and truly exceptional product. But entrepreneurs know there is a lot more to building a business than analytics and sleek design.
We want to know what makes founders tick, how they pivot to tackle the hard stuff, what keeps them up at night, and what keeps them going each day. I'm Jenny Rudin.
And I'm Katie Demo, and we're the co-founders of Brass Clothing and your hosts for Making It Happen, a show where we have raw, honest conversations with other founders like ourselves.
Join us for fly-on-the-wall access to intimate discussions about what it's really like to start, run, and grow a business. This is Making It Happen. Founders learn quickly that a big vision and a solid business plan can only get you so far. At the end of the day, to really make it happen, you've got to have cash on hand.
And figuring out financing is one of the hardest things you can do as a founder. Should you put your own money into it, network it with angel investors, tap friends and family, or reach out to venture capitalists? And learning when to say yes or even no to new money is also part of the game.
That's exactly what Kim Lewis had to grapple with when she went on Shark Tank to seek an investment in her company, CurlMix, and turned down a $400,000 deal. But that was just part of her fundraising journey.
Today on Making It Happen, we're talking with Kim about getting into the fundraising game, how she tackles boardroom nerves, and how she found the right funding for CurlMix at the right stage. Welcome, Kim.
Hey guys, thank you for having me. I like how you said the funding mix for CurlMix.
Well, it is a mix. It is totally.
Yes, got some alliteration going on there.
You definitely pieced together like quite an assortment of different types of financing. So we'll definitely dive into that. But let's go back to the very beginning. Briefly give us a high-level recap of what you were doing before CurlMix even became an idea in your head.
Gotcha. So we're just for all the listeners out there, CurlMix is a clean beauty brand that focuses on simple beauty rituals. We focus on curly hair, but we do offer other, body products. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, in Morgan Park High School. So I met my husband. We met freshman year, second period gym class. We started dating around junior year, and we've been together since we were 16. Literally.
That's awesome.
And then I went to U of I. I grew up basically underserved, right? Like my community didn't really have a grocery store. My mom was, a single mother to 5 kids. And my only goal was to make money in the future. Like as a kid, I was just like, I want to quote unquote, make it out. Right. And then I came back because I was just like, there's no such thing. Right. I just knew that we didn't have money and I wanted to get some one day. And so I thought the way to do that was to go and work in corporate America. And so in my mind, I was going to go work in marketing at a big corporate company and wear like my pencil skirts to work and be like the businesswoman in my family. And so much so that I remember when I was a little kid, my mom wanted to teach me how to cook one day. And I think I was like upset and I was like, I don't want to do this. I was like, I don't want to cook. I'm going to be a businesswoman. I don't need to learn how to cook. And she got so upset with me.
How old were you when she
13 or something? 13. And we got to an argument because she was just like, how dare you? How arrogant must you be? This is so rude. You shouldn't do that. And so that's a story she always tells. I know how to cook now, but it's just funny. It's funny. Even back then I wanted to be in business.
It all comes full circle, right?
Yes. And then I went to college.
That audacity set you down a different path. You were not in the kitchen. You were hitting the pavement.
Yep. Yes, but I actually went to the kitchen to hit the pavement because I had to make the flexi gel that we have. So I had to learn how to make it. And it's essentially like cooking. That's what I have in my hair right now.
Okay.
You have to boil flax seeds to make the product, extract it, and then put it in a bottle and serve it up and sell it to my customers. And so I ended up going back to the kitchen even though I was like fighting it back then. I think it's so funny. I go to University of Illinois from 18 to like 21.
Yep.
And I study business. So I had majored in marketing. And because I was pretty much like a Black girl at a traditionally white institution, I was like, all the Black girls are doing marketing. I was like, if I want to get a job out of college, I need something technical. I need a technical skill. So I was like, let me go into supply chain management. I don't really have an interest in logistics, but I'll learn and I'll pick up a skill that will make me more marketable after college. Because we're spending, $120,000 on this degree. Like, I need to be able to use it after. Right out of college, I was working at Aldi, and I left maybe after 3 months, because I wasn't feeling it. It wasn't, my heart wasn't in it, but I also felt like I didn't belong, which is something a lot of like Black women go through when they join corporate America. You're the only out of like 100 district managers. I was the only one. And everything I did, I feel like I got in trouble for. So I was just like, you know what? I'm just and I was listening to Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week. It's not the thing to be listening to if you like are at a job that you hate, because then you're just like, you know what? Forget it. I'm just going to quit. At the time, my husband and I, we were watching like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And my husband that summer, we watched a few episodes, and we watched it for like 3 hours straight one day. And he got every single question right. Every single one. And I was like, I don't know anybody who can get every single question right when they watch this show. I was like, you need to be on this show. He ends up going on the show and he wins $100,000 and invests like 20% of that into our first business.
Oh, wow.
Wow, this story starts way before we realized.
Okay, this is amazing. Awesome. Okay, so was that 20K that he put into your first business, CurlMix, or something else?
No, it was something else. It was the Natural Hair Academy. So it was a social network for natural hair. That was, a lesson in and of itself, because essentially I was competing with Facebook, right? If you're building a social network, you have to be a media company or ad company. And I don't think I got that at the time. At the time, I just thought it would be a cool community to kind of like build. And we did that for about 1.5 years before I realized I needed to be a venture-backed startup. And that people are always going to go to Facebook because they have a larger audience. And so I'm not going to be able to compete. And people are going to Instagram instead to talk about their journeys versus talking to other people about how to do their hair. So I think I had my premise was wrong, but I learned a lot because I connected with a lot of natural hair people in the industry. And I had a lot of connections to help me catapult CurlMix when we launched. But I closed that business after about 2 years.
This sounds like it was like probably a huge investment in your education when it comes to like learning how to run a business. So
yes,
nothing lost there. That's incredible.
I invested like $25,000 in that business.
Yeah, it's a lot cheaper than University of Illinois.
I joke that I got my MBA with my first business,
Yes, totally.
Oh, it's not a joke. It's a real life MBA.
It's the truth. That's where the lessons actually like stick with you too.
Mm-hmm.
So cool. Okay. So it took you 1.5 years and you realized this social network isn't going to get off the ground. And so what happened next?
And so we were watching an episode of Shark Tank, and this lady was making like DIY cookies. And this is like 2015. Everything came in like little packages for you to make your own like organic cookies. And I was like, oh my gosh, is anyone doing this for hair? Because I literally like do this all the time after watching YouTube videos. I'll go to Whole Foods, spend $300 or $400, buy all these raw materials and mix up my stuff in my kitchen. And sometimes I would hate the product and the kitchen would be dirty. And I was like, man, if someone would just figure out the formula before I got it and send me everything to me prepackaged, this would be wonderful. It would save me so much time and money. And we did that. At first, I was like, this is a bad idea. We shouldn't do it. And Tim was like, no, Kim, just give it a shot. So we launched it. I sold 1 box to my cousin. And I was like, see, I told you this is a dumb idea. And he's like, no, Kim, if Airbnb can relaunch 7 times, surely you can relaunch twice, right?
Up until this $1 million mark, had you just put in your own money to the business? Had you guys gotten any outside investment yet at this point?
So I was in incubators where I was learning how to fundraise. And that's when I learned that my business was a vitamin and not a painkiller. The first one I went to was like Women in STEM at 1871 in Chicago. And they kind of put us in front of investors. And I was just like, this fundraising business, I was like, this is going to take forever. Like, I'm a woman, I'm a Black woman. Like, women get less than 3% of venture capital. Black women get less than 0.006. So I was just like, this is not going to be the best use of my time. But I met Arlen from Backstage Capital. And she wrote us our first check before we hit that $1 million mark. So right when we pivoted to like the flaxseed gel, that was like January, right? Mm-hmm. I met Arlen and I went to an event of hers in March. Mm-hmm. And she basically was like, I like you guys. I want to invest in you guys. And she's like, I have a check and it's a $25,000 check. When she wrote me that check, I cried because I was like, oh my gosh, someone believes in me. This is the most money I've ever seen in my business bank account I called my best friend and I screamed. I was like, oh my gosh. And we used that $5,000 to buy that machine on eBay from Arlen's check.
Oh my gosh, awesome.
And we moved into our first manufacturing was a facility that needed like first and last month's rent. And I was like, I would have never had that from my $10,000 a month sales, you know? So it was a beautiful time. And by August, we hit our first 6-figure month. It was like 100,000 in revenue. And
that was August 2018.
Yes. August 2018. Yes.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
And then that next month, we filmed Shark Tank. So we filmed it, but it didn't air. So we filmed it in September, and then we keep growing. So after I knew I was going to, after we filmed Shark Tank, then I feel like I really geared up my investing, my fundraising, engine or tank or whatever you want to call it. I was like, okay, I'm going to have a catalyst, right? This Shark Tank is going to make us really popular, and it's also going to help me fundraise. Let me start getting in touch with VCs more often. So what I started doing, I knew it would be really hard. I wasn't going to be able to raise money until I made money. It was going to be very, very difficult for me. So what I started doing was I collected maybe 10 different investors in Chicago. I put them all on the email list. And it wasn't even like I didn't have Klaviyo back then at the time. I did, but I didn't use it for investors. I was literally just sending them a blank email, say, these are our 3 biggest wins, 3 biggest challenges. Here's the last 6 months of revenue. And here's what I'm projecting for next month. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't have an ask really. And I would send this to them monthly for maybe from March of that year all the way through the end of the year. So that when it came time to actually ask for funding, I had already had contact with them over the last 6 months. Mm-hmm. And so I had I got my first offer for a $6 million valuation. I basically negotiated up to 7, but that was difficult. And we were already on track to make $1 million. And I was like, this feels low. I'm going to pass. And it was actually a fund here in Chicago. And this was after turning down Robert on Shark Tank, for the $400,000 offer. But again, this hasn't aired yet, so no one knows that this happened. And then I found out that the show was going to air the next year in March. And when I knew it was going to air, then it was time to hustle, because you have to figure out, if you go from doing $200,000 in a month to $1 million the next month, you don't have the inventory for that kind of growth, right? Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to miss that big opportunity of all that press to my website. So then I started calling any and everybody. All those contacts I had made in the last year, I was like, hey, I'm going to be on Shark Tank. I need funding. I need a couple $100,000 for inventory. And that's when I met Jeff Weiner's partner of investment.
Jeff Weiner, former CEO of LinkedIn.
Yes. Jeff Weiner's former CEO of LinkedIn. I hit Arlen up. I was like, hey, Arlen, I'm trying to raise a couple $100,000 for inventory before Shark Tank. And she was like, I have someone who I think, might do the deal, but he's a quick yes or no. But you got to be fast. Like, I got on the phone with him and it was like a 5-minute call, and he literally made a decision in 5 minutes, and he was an angel investor. Yeah.
How did you prepare for that call?
I honestly think at this point, I had done maybe 20 to 50 pitch competitions, and this was post Shark Tank, right? So I am a whip with my numbers. I know my business frontwards, backwards, inside and out. And so he had quick questions. What's your CAC? What's your LTV? How do you plan to grow? What's your current revenue? He's like, I only do 2 times current revenue. So I'm not going to be able to give you, no, he said 2.5 times current revenue. And it was a convertible note. So it was just to kind of get me to that next level.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And so he did the deal for $100,000. He's like, hey, do you mind if I bring my partner on, Jeff Weiner? I was like, who's that? And I looked at him, I'm like, oh, sure, we can bring Jeff on. And then we went on Shark Tank, and the episode did really, really well. And Jeff ended up seeing the episode and was like, those sharks are nuts. They should have given her a deal. And he's like, wait a minute, honey, I think we invest in this company.
Oh my God.
And so then they call me back up and they're like, hey, can we invest $1 million into your company? And I was like, what valuation though?
Well, of course.
Yes.
The question.
And we ended up doing a deal for $12 million post money. So It was, so basically they invested $1.2 million. So once they were in, there were a bunch of other people who kind of came in and wanted to be on the deal. And so I had to start telling people no, actually. So once you get that first big fish, everybody will try to jump in. Investors are followers. I know people like to think that they're innovators and they take big bets. No, they're waiting for someone else to take the big bet so that then they can come in and say, okay, well, now this is more secure, right? So that's why everyone always says you need to find a lead first, because it's easier. It's easier to raise the rest of your round. Yeah. So we ended up closing that $1.2 million raise in April of
Okay.
2019.
Kim, let's get kind of into the tactics of this. When you obviously throughout the year of 2018, this is when you were raising all this different type of capital that got you to the 1.2 million ultimately. Tell us a little bit about how you'd advise other entrepreneurs who are thinking about raising money. Like, what do you think it's smartest to go to friends and family first? Should you put your own money into it? When do you start going for the big dogs? Is VC the right choice or not? Give us some tools to start thinking about what the right type of funding is for your business.
It's so hard to say, like, you should do this, right? Because no one ever wants to make a recommendation and tell someone what they should be doing. And I hate the word should, right? Because I think everybody's path is different. But before we took VC money, I had debt, right? So my husband and I used our own money, our own credit cards, our own credit worthiness to build the business. And that's, I'd be remiss if I left that out, right? Because you're like, what did you do with that money? Some of it went back to paying off maybe like a couple $100,000 in debt that we probably had at the time.
Right.
So, because you need some kind of capital. So we'd invested a lot of our own money. Now, if I started, let's say, for example, we IPO with CurlMix and I do something else, I'm probably, depending on what it is, I'm probably still going to raise venture capital because you can go bigger faster. So if you want to exit your business and you want to either IPO or sell your company for hundreds of millions of dollars, raise venture capital. That's my recommendation. If you want to own 100% of it, you don't want anybody else telling you what to do. You want to have to consider what anyone else thinks and how they're going to feel when you post a picture on your Instagram or, whatever. If you want to start your own course or something, then don't raise venture capital, right? If you're okay with it being a bit smaller, you're like, hey, it doesn't need to be more than $10 million in revenue. I just want to be able to make 6 to 7 figures for myself and then be on a beach in Tahiti somewhere. Like, you don't need venture capital, right? But if you're trying to go really big, quickly, then you definitely want to raise money. And I say quickly, what's quick, right? You want to have some kind of liquidity event within the next 10 years.
Okay.
If you do, and I say liquidity event, what's that? An acquisition or an IPO?
You said it very succinctly and quickly. It was 25K, it was 200K, it was 1.2 million. But I imagine there was a lot of conversations in between those 3 transactions that took place. How do you keep going day after day after day when you're facing rejection and people are questioning and doubting your business?
So for me, we employ over almost 40 people. And I realize I'm fundraising not for me, but for them. I know people think that, oh, you're the founder, you're going to be the one rich, you're the one living the high life. And it's like, no, I'm the captain of the ship and I want to make sure we don't sink. And that is what keeps me going for fundraising. So the mental toughness, when I was pitching one of my first funds, I walked into a room of mostly white men over 50, and they know anything about curly hair. And I was the only Black person in the room. And so, and I remember pitching what I was doing and trying to help them understand, hair, natural hair. And one of the questions I got was like, could you ever use all the flax seeds that are out there in the world and deplete all of the stock that the world has in flax seeds? And I was just like, what? Like, that's like saying, am I ever going to use all the beans that are in the world? You know what I mean? Or and I was like, oh, he doesn't understand. And I was like, so I have to and I remember having jitters and my hands shaking.
Dumb question. I'm sorry. That's an offensive question to ask someone.
And I was just like, he doesn't get it. Okay, no worries. And so I'm trying to, and I remember shaking, when I was giving that pitch. And I never get that nervous, right? This is post Shark Tank. I didn't even get that nervous on Shark Tank, And so I was not shaking, my hand, and I couldn't stop my hand from shaking. And I was like, Kim, you cannot do this again. I was like, you need to get it together. I was like, you will not be going in these rooms looking afraid or, looking scared or nervous about what they're going to say. I was like, I had to I've been reading this book, We Should All Be Millionaires by Rachel Rodgers. And it really just talks about the BS that sometimes women tell themselves, to make them, it makes us feel smaller. And we really need to own our power and own that we are the ish, you know what I mean? And know that you've gotten this far and you can say, I'm smart. I'm talented. What I'm doing is going to make money. So what if they don't believe it?
Mm-hmm.
And I had to do a lot of mind work, a lot of like, you need to believe in yourself. You need to not doubt yourself as much, all of that stuff. So, but that was when I just kind of had a turning point, and I think in my confidence, because I was so embarrassed that I was shaking in the room. And they ended up giving me an offer, but I ended up turning it down because I didn't like the offer, And I was like, oh my gosh, it's one of my embarrassing moments, I guess you'll say. But it would also
I don't
taught me a
find that
lesson.
embarrassing at all. I don't find that embarrassing at all, Kim, actually. I think it's a moment where you like realize who you want to be. And I find that like so powerful. I mean, it sucks that you felt embarrassed in that moment, but like those are the times when we actually learn and make important decisions for our life.
Right.
And I've decided that now that I am the big fish in the room because I'm the one that's going to make them money.
I am obsessed with this story because you just took the reins. You took the reins. I mean, you decided that you were going to be the big fish. You didn't have to get you didn't need that confidence to come from anywhere but yourself. That is so impressive.
Yeah. And I think what Katie just touched on is also really key, which is that, yes, you left that room feeling like shit, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But we have all left rooms just like that.
Yeah.
Slight variations on that same theme, feeling that same immense amount, that like literal visceral wave of self-doubt and the shakes, the physical ramification, the physical manifestations, of that imposter syndrome, that doubt, or even just sometimes I actually think it's this as well, as women in particular, when our confidence is shaked, I'm almost as much as embarrassed as I might be about my performance in that moment, I'm equally as frustrated that those people just rocked me in that way.
I think that's true.
And the notion that you just let yourself down almost in that moment when you had it in your hands, like that in and of itself is just demoralizing and frustrating. And sometimes it's that frustration that you're also feeling as much as the embarrassment of how you might have just performed in that moment.
Agreed, 100%.
Yeah. Aside from that, though, when you did have time to decompress after and sort of, recap it for yourself and think, how am I going to turn this narrative around and use it in the future? You probably had a new philosophy on what rooms you were willing to enter. Maybe a slight bit more of diligence done in terms of like, who am I willing to approach next? And who am I willing to put my business in front of? Would you say that's the case?
I realize there is an art to fundraising, and you can almost choose your investors. So if you have drummed up enough interest and enough, excitement about your business, you don't have to take the first check that's thrown at you. You can do the work to, okay, these are my dream investors. This is how I'm going to get in front of them. This is the communication I'm going to do for 6 months before I need to ask them for money. And then I'm going to have some kind of event or some kind of moment that forces them into a time constraint for them to make a decision. And then I can pick the person that I want most to lead that round, and then everyone else will follow. And then I'll be telling people, no, here, there, and that. So I know there's an art to fundraising now. And I don't think I knew that then. It was more so reactive, And when it's reactive, you're reacting, and then you want to be proactive about it so you can pick your investors.
I feel like that's an incredibly strategic piece of advice that I hope everyone really takes in, because you had to actually learn that advice. You had to live through it to learn it, but it's very kind of you to share it with the rest of the world, because there is nothing like kind of sadder than like begging for money and feeling like you're begging for money. And what you've done is flipped that on its head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been there too, begging for money.
Kim, you got some really good advice here, but we haven't talked about the most important thing yet.
You said you got to select your investors. Well, what happens when your investors are actually also your customers? Tell us a little bit about approaching your community and how important it was to incorporate them into this story.
So I'll give you a little context. For African-American startups that are typically in the beauty space, when one of us gets like really big, right, and then we sell our company, our customers feel left out. They feel like, dang, like you sold out. We helped you build this brand. We thought you were like here for the people, and then you sold to some big conglomerate who doesn't care about us, right? And the brand usually fizzles out. That's typically the story. It's time and time again. And I was like, man, like what I wish that in this process of raising money, like my customers could give me money and I could just use that money to fuel the business. They could invest in own shares and they wouldn't feel left out when there is a liquidity event, right? Because if I'm raising venture, there has to be a liquidity event, right? So how can I marry the two, make them happy, but also still be a very wildly successful company? And I was on Clubhouse at the top of the year. I hadn't heard of crowdfunding before. I actually invested in a couple campaigns, but I had not really considered it for myself because I was like, oh my gosh, you have to put all of your business out there, like all of it, like, financials, plans, future, everything. Because I was like, if I'm going to do all of this, I can't do it just for $1 million because our business, at the time we on our Shopify store, it said around 6 million and everything like that. Once you do the financials and everything, it's a little lower than that, but around 6 million. And I was just like, $1 million this is a lot of work and it's a lot of information I'm revealing for $1 million.
Yep.
The number raised to 5 million because of the pandemic, March 15th. And so I was in Clubhouse, I want to say in January, and I kept going to these rooms called about crowdfunding. And one of my friends, Max from Caribou, she's the first like Latina woman or Latinx woman to raise $1 million in crowdfunding. And so she's doing these free clubhouses every Monday for like 8 weeks in a row, just bringing on, folks from Start Engine, from WeFunder, about crowdfunding and other founders who've done it. And you just get Q&A. They tell you everything. Renee from Fun Black Founder, she was on there too. And oh my gosh, they just kind of gave you the playbook. And I was like, maybe this is a real thing. Maybe it's not as hard as I think it is, right?
Yeah.
And so Johnny from WeFunder convinced me. He's like, you could do crowdfunding and you would kill it. He's like, you have over 100,000 customers. You have 500,000 email addresses. Like you would kill it. And I was just like, I don't know. And so he convinced me to do it. After I was talking to him, I was like, okay, we'll do it. And then we go to file our Form C the day before we launch. And then they're like, oh no, you need audited financials. And I was like, that was like my nightmare. I was like, not that my financials are bad, right? It's not that, but it's just that an audit is like any accountant's nightmare. No accountant wants to be audited, right? So my CFO freaked out at first. And then also it was going to take more time. If you can't file a Form C until you get the audited financials, that means you can't, it takes another month after you file the Form C to even get the money. So literally, 100%. It took 3 months to go through that audit for us. And then we filed the Form C and then we got the money. So it took maybe 4 or 5 months from the moment I decided we were actually going to do the crowdfund. Actually, maybe 6 months. And imagine we really needed the money right around the time I decided. So I was just kind of it kind of delayed, I would say, growth maybe for 6 to 9 months because you have to shift all of your focus. But I was excited about the opportunity for my customers to be able to invest in the company. That was worth it to me. I was like, this is different. This allows them to own the value that they're creating with every one of their purchases, right? I don't know if customers know that, but with every sale, right, they increase the value of your company because that increases revenue, your valuation is based on your revenue. And so they jumped at the opportunity. They helped me raise the first $1 million. They were just like, oh, I think we've closed maybe 5,000 investors and at least 1,000 of them are customers, at least.
Wow, unbelievable.
And I was just like, I'm so happy to have them along the ride with me and to be able to help create wealth for their families as well. Of course, I can't guarantee any results because, SEC rules, right? I can't promise that I'm going to be able to make a return, but that's my goal. And that's what I'm working towards. And I want to be like the Black-owned Procter & Gamble traded on the stock market. The investment of building the manufacturing for us early on, even though we took a loss initially, it's going to help us create other brands in the future.
So how much have you raised so far with that campaign?
So because we had to basically raise a lot of the money up front and then have everyone double opt in. So I have collected approximately about 3-ish million. There's about 1 to 2 million hanging on, but when we close, that money will come over as well. So I've got my first deposit from that.
You have a really incredible and impressive vision for your business and where you want to go. And I wanted to know, how critical do you think that your vision is to to your success in in funding?
People are not investing in you in crowdfunding because your business is so cool. They're investing in the founder. They are investing in the vision that you have and their conviction or belief around the fact that you can take them there. And so I think that's probably the only important thing around crowdfunding. The financials, the money, sure. They're like, for some like really serious investors, like that matters. But my customers, they really just believe in us. So I think it was important for me to know where I was going to be able to even communicate that versus just saying like, hey, you can own shares of the company. It's like, what's the value in it for them? They want to be a part of the next conglomerate. They want to be a part of the next Procter & Gamble.
I love how thoughtful you were about this and that you really like went down each path and you were like, okay, no, not this one for this reason, and really like gave it a lot of thought. I think that's incredibly helpful for some people. I think sometimes, and me myself even, you're like, sometimes I think people think, oh, vision is just something that you have. And either you have it or you don't have it. And it's actually not. It's something that you can really work on.
Well, in fact, I feel like it's actually something you have to constantly work on. This notion that like an incredible idea is just going to plop itself in your lap and exist there sort of glowing at you every day and inspiring you is like a complete joke. Sometimes you've got to look at that thing and be like, you're not working today. We've got to make some changes, or let's evolve this to satisfy a new need, or the world is different this year than it was 2 years ago. I mean, with strategy specifically. So that vision is kind of a constantly evolving thing, and something that you as a founder are nurturing, and it in turn is inspiring you. But there's kind of this like symbiosis there, I think, that is going to carry you from today well into the future when you reach whatever goal it is that you have for your company.
Yeah.
I think this is maybe a great note to end on. Katie and I have talked a lot about this, and it's something both of us are really kind of focused on and wondering how to create for ourselves too, is mentorship is and advisors and peers and friends that you feel you can turn to with tough questions and use as sounding boards, whether it's in a formal relationship where you're meeting with someone each week, or it's someone that you can pick up the phone and call quarterly, whatever it may be. Seek those people out. It doesn't matter if you're the CEO of a booming, growing business or you're just out the gate. Be humble and approach people for advice and guidance. And I really think like it will serve you, now and in the future, kind of, Kim, just as you brought up. Really important.
Yeah, I 100% agree. My advice to founders would be to be coachable. Sometimes, the best teachers only want to work with certain students. And it's not necessarily the highest achieving student. It's the most coachable. It's the person that when I give you feedback, you're going to take it and implement it. Be a master implementer with the coach, the feedback, and be coachable. Sometimes I'll talk to founders and, if I'm there like, hey, I have this problem, and I start giving them feedback and like suggestions and how you can make these tweaks and improvements, they get very defensive, because that's their baby. That's their, like, it's almost like you're insulting them, and it's not what you're trying to do. You're just trying to help them, further them on their journey, but it comes off as not coachable. You know what I mean? And I think if you come in, let down your ego, let down that wall, and just get the feedback and the mentorship, it will serve you so much more.
Amazing.
Couldn't agree more.
That's a fantastic note to end on.
Great note to end on.
Yeah, thank you.
Kim, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, guys. This was so much fun.
Wow. That was an amazing conversation. I feel like we learned so much.
Truly inspirational.
I
think chatting with Kim specifically about fundraising was really enlightening, because she has approached it from so many different angles and pursued so many different types of funding.
Right.
And one thing that I feel just really resonated with me and was such a powerful statistic that she cited was that women right now earn about 3% of every VC dollar out there in terms of capital being given to new businesses, only 3%. And women of color, it's even less, 0.06%.
Yeah.
That statistic just is shocking in some ways, and just goes to show how hard it is to get into those rooms and as a woman of color, and to demand and secure that capital when you need it most.
Right. Jenny and I have fundraised.
Yeah.
And it's a really interesting, it's a tough thing to do, and it's a hard process, especially when you feel like you are like asking for money rather than telling someone that, asking someone to invest in your business because it will benefit them in the future.
Yeah.
I think that was a conversation that you and I had a few times, like before we would go into fundraising meetings, being like, we're not begging here. Like, and really getting ourselves out of that mindset. I think that women do that kind of as a default of like, oh, I'm asking this person for money, da, da, da. It's quite the opposite. You're giving them an opportunity to come in on something that you're pouring your heart and soul into and actually benefit from that.
Absolutely.
And it's such a critical thing for you to be in the right headspace when you're going into fundraising.
Exactly. And I kind of think that dovetails really nicely with what Kim said about the art of fundraising. You need to have a plan at the outset and sort of like manifest the outcome that you want.
Yeah.
Go into a room, start a months-long process of fundraising with a vision of what that end goal is, how much money you want to raise, what your company is worth, and dive in head first. There's no time to feel like you're playing into the hands of someone else. Really, you're holding the deck of cards and you're dealing them as you see fit. And even just that shifted, I know it's easier said than done.
It is.
Frankly, but you got to start with that right frame of mind.
You have to start with that right frame of mind. You also, frankly, have to have a business that people are just like desperate to get into and they're excited about. There's no way around that. But if you do have that and you have a roadmap, you have a step-by-step plan of what you're going to do to get people excited about what you're doing, it seems to me like what Kim said, that you get to pick your own investors. That's really what happens.
Yeah. And it's a bit of a domino effect.
That's right.
Of course, this is one example, Kim's story, but that investors are followers, not innovators. We think of these people as, as gods in this world, and that we're so beholden to them as founders. I think there's two really important things to remember. You get to script your own narrative. You get to raise the dollars that are right for you. No one else gets to put money into your company unless you say, yes, please do.
Yeah.
Sign here. Once you get that key investor, that should be part of your strategy. Focus on one person, one fund, one type of capital first, and then the rest really will follow suit. You'll leverage that first check to get the rest. And then one other thing that I really thought was interesting is, VC is not the holy grail of capital.
Right.
It could be right for your business, but it also might not be the right path to take if you have just a different vision and a different aspiration for what kind of company you want to build.
Right.
We talked about this a little bit, but I really think it's important. If you want to maintain 100% control, if you want your business to grow slowly and steadily, as opposed to jumpstart up into a position where you could have an immediate exit or an IPO, that really affects what type of funding you want to pursue. If you've already had success developing a really loyal customer base, maybe crowdfunding is the right course of action for you. There's just really so much out there, and I think feeling like the options are endless when it comes to just knowing that the options are really out there when it comes to what type of money is right for your business. It's like absolutely step one is doing your research as to what all those possibilities are.
And be extremely planful so you're never in a position where you're desperate for money.
That's true. That's true too.
That puts all the power back in your hands, and that's what you want.
Absolutely. Really great conversation.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Kim.
Thanks, Kim.